And I knew coming into this season, once people started talking, once I was here and experiencing it, like, people had a lot to say. There was a lot of negativity coming my way, and I just looked at it like, you know, I'm not used to this. Once I got here and was experiencing people's disapproval, it didn't really faze me, because I still understood. I think I understood even more so that this is definitely a part of my plan. When people get to not liking you for no reason, I'm probably exactly where I need to be.
The WNBA world was recently thrown into chaos when shocking revelations surfaced about what Sydney Colson revealed regarding Caitlin Clark and the real atmosphere inside the Indiana Fever locker room. Her words left many of the league's so-called bullies scrambling to defend themselves. After months of relentless speculation, rumors, and false narratives pushed by figures like Sheryl Swoopes, Reese, and others who tried to paint the Fever as dysfunctional, Colson finally decided to speak her truth. Appearing on the Post Moves podcast, she opened up about her first-hand experience in Indiana's locker room, and her comments completely dismantled the false image that critics had been trying to build for months. Her honesty revealed a reality that was the exact opposite of what Clark's detractors wanted people to believe, exposing the jealousy and misinformation that had fueled the league's drama. And once you hear Colson's actual words, it becomes crystal clear why the Fever's foundation looks stronger than ever heading into 2026. But before we break it all down, take a moment to show some love for Sydney in the comments, because her courage to tell the truth deserves recognition. During the podcast, Colson was asked a simple yet loaded question. What were her first impressions when joining the Fever? And what surprised her most about the team and its environment? The host said, "Guys, I just have to know, because I feel like everyone always has something to say about Indy. Once you mention the Fever, people instantly have opinions, thoughts, right? So, what was your biggest surprise after coming to Indy and realizing, you know what, these people are actually kind of cool?" That question opened the door for Colson to shed light on the truth that many had ignored. To really understand why her comments carried so much weight, you need to go back to how this whole situation started. Even before the 2024 WNBA draft had wrapped up, certain veteran players began orchestrating a campaign to discredit Caitlin Clark and cast doubt on the Indiana Fever. Clark had just been selected as the first overall pick in April, but before she could even step foot inside the team's practice facility, veteran players were already questioning her fit, her personality, and her potential influence on the team. Sheryl Swoopes was among the first to strike. She made provocative comments about the Fever's supposed locker room dysfunction, claiming there were deeper problems within the organization, and suggesting that Clark might struggle to adapt to the professional environment. Instead of celebrating a rookie who had single-handedly elevated interest in women's basketball, Swoopes used her platform to create a narrative of chaos and instability around the team. She spoke publicly as though she had inside information, implying that significant players within the Fever were unhappy and that internal tension was brewing before the season had even started. Her comments opened the floodgates. Reese and A'ja Wilson soon followed suit, adding their own fuel to the fire. Reese made veiled remarks during interviews about how team chemistry and personal glory don't always align, insinuating that Clark's college stardom wouldn't translate into professional success. Wilson went even further, criticizing Clark's media hype and implying that her fame overshadowed the years of effort put in by established WNBA stars. Some of Wilson's statements even carried racial undertones, adding more controversy to the growing narrative. Their timing was precise, and each new comment seemed to fit perfectly into a larger effort to portray the Fever as divided and unprepared. The sports media quickly picked up on these remarks and began crafting entire around supposed locker room issues. Reporters started asking leading questions about the team's chemistry and internal dynamics. What began as a handful of speculative comments from jealous veterans ballooned into a full-blown national conversation about whether the Fever were falling apart behind the scenes. Fans started expecting drama before the team had even played a game together. The narrative had been said Clark was painted as a polarizing figure, and Indiana was portrayed as a fragile organization, struggling to adjust to her fame. But the timing of all this chatter revealed everything about the motivations behind it. Caitlin Clark's arrival had transformed women's basketball. Her college games had shattered television records. Merchandising had reached new heights. Sponsorships and brand deals were flooding into the WNBA at levels never seen before. And veterans who had spent years working without that kind of spotlight suddenly found themselves eclipsed by a rookie whose popularity had grown beyond the sport itself. Rather than embracing that momentum and benefiting from the league's newfound exposure, many chose to tear her down, viewing her success as a threat rather than an opportunity. Then came Sydney Colson's interview, the moment that completely shattered months of lies and speculation. On the Post Moves podcast, she calmly but powerfully told her side of the story, describing what the Fever's locker room was actually like. Her timing couldn't have been better. Just as the negative headlines were at their peak, Colson delivered a dose of truth that hit the WNBA gossip machine like a wrecking ball. "I think the environment in the locker room was much better than what people on the outside would expect," she said. "We were intentional about spending time together. Once we started hanging out more, everyone was like, I actually enjoy being around these people off the court." And that started translating into wins. "We figured, if this helps off the court, maybe it helps on the court too." Her statement landed like a bombshell. Coming from a respected veteran who lived through every practice, every meeting, and every team moment, her words carried undeniable credibility. Colson wasn't speculating, she was speaking from experience. She made it clear that the locker room atmosphere was not only positive but exceeded expectations. Far from the dysfunctional image portrayed by critics, the Fever had developed genuine chemistry and camaraderie, both on and off the court. Colson went on to explain that the team's success was directly tied to their growing bonds off the floor. Spending time together outside of basketball helped build trust, understanding, and communication during games. Teammates began to anticipate each other's moves, respond to challenges with unity, and celebrate every success collectively. She shared that this togetherness wasn't something forced by the coaching staff or a marketing stunt, it happened naturally. Players wanted to spend time with one another, going out for meals, checking in on each other, and forming authentic friendships. These connections created a foundation for success that no amount of outside negativity could destroy. Reflecting on her own journey, Colson shared, "I look at my story sometimes and think, why did things have to happen this way? But now, at my age, I realize it made me tougher and more compassionate. I value everyone's contribution more deeply now." Her words were heartfelt and genuine, underscoring that what was being built in Indiana went far beyond basketball. It was about mutual respect, resilience, and shared growth. This wasn't a PR spin or an attempt to shield the organization's reputation. Colson had nothing to gain from sugarcoating the truth. Her reputation in the league was already secure, and her comments came from a place of honesty, not obligation. She described how the Fever's team chemistry grew naturally over time, even before their relationships fully developed off the court. Their early cooperation on the court had already started producing results. But as their bond deepened, the synergy between players became undeniable. Communication improved, defensive awareness sharpened, and the players began to thrive in an environment of trust and unity. By the end of her interview, it was clear the so-called toxic Indiana Fever that critics had been describing didn't exist. Instead, the real story was one of a young, determined team, finding its rhythm and building something strong for the future. Sydney Colson's honesty didn't just silence the false narratives, it proved that the Fever's foundation was solid, their chemistry real, and their potential limitless heading into the seasons ahead.